Welcome to this week's episode of Planks Audio. Today we have a submission from Sumerian. I think it's a sock special, so let's have a look. Sisi's man knew he was in for a good night when she came into the bedroom. She had on a brand new pair of Puma socks, extra coarse. These socks were made for one purpose only, by herself, lovingly knit together from yarn, spun from her own pussy hair. She wasn't looking for a night of passionate embraces entering the room in those beasts. She wanted to show her man what kind of wildcat she was in the bedroom. Those socks let him know that this kitty has claws, and she's about to use them by turning his cock into her own personal scratching post. While it may be said that Sissy likes stocks, there's nothing compared to the fact that Sissy loves cocks, clenched in the warm embrace of her Puma socks. Sissy silently prowled towards the bed, hissing a single sentence at her man as she stalked towards her prey, her eyes locked on one thing only. "Pants off," she purred. The fear in his eyes grew, but he knew not to anger this ferocious tiger. He shakily hauled off his pants, his penis trying not to attract the attention of the ferocious woman, but his excitement got the best of him. As his manhood enlarged, Sissy's eyes never left their prey. With agile grace, she leapt onto the bed beside her man, planting herself firmly so she could raise her paws towards their target. Her feet gently padded at his penis in its semi-erect state. This was no toy for this ferocious kitty. This was a toy to bat and to scratch at, and it bore the scratches and scars to show the many battles it had been through against this sexual feline. Her socks gently curved around the swollen member, her dexterity shown in the way her flexible feet managed to grasp his cock so tightly. He moaned in both pain and in pleasure as the coarse pubic hair of the socks began to dig into his flesh as she applied pressure. The force that she could apply to her feet grips on his manhood terrified him, while her skill in applying the pressure up and down the shaft caused him to sweat. He tried to whisper, but his mind was unsure whether to say stop or more. Sissy's powerful leg muscles began to flex as she started to push into his manhood, arching her back as she attempted to put enough pressure on his tug toy to tear it off. She wished it no real harm, but she knew her man could not only take the abuse, but she could sense the veins on his throbbing meat through her socks, and she knew this was what he wanted. Sweat began to bead on her forehead from the exertion, but she could see in his eyes he wanted more, he could take more, and she could give it. She grimaced as her feet began to cramp from the position they were in, but she would not let her man down. Her legs were pumping like she was racing a quarter-mile on her man's pogo stick. His legs tensed as his body was screaming from the pleasure, pain, every instinct telling him to pull away, but she would not let him leave. Her socks were glued to his dick like they were made of Velcro. The friction was enough to make his junk begin to glow fire red as he screamed that he was ready to blow. His searing magna erupted from his manhood, and her feet finally released their victim so she could spin round and lap up the treat she had just milked from her man. Amazing. Very good. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Planks Audio. We'll see you again soon.